He had fame, money, and millions of fans. But none of it mattered the night he planned a surprise for the one person who saw him as just a man. No cameras, no spotlight, just a quiet bookstore, and a heart ready to speak the truth. But what he was about to say would change everything between them forever. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Oh, dive into what really happened. What if the person who quietly walked into your life ended up changing it forever? It was a calm, peaceful evening in Los Angeles, the kind where the sky slowly fades into soft shades of gold and blue, and the city lights begin to sparkle like distant stars. From the window of a high-rise apartment, the view looked almost perfect. Everything seemed alive, glowing, and full of energy. But inside that room there was silence. He stood there, holding a warm cup of coffee, his eyes fixed on the skyline. To the world he was everything people dreamed of, successful, respected, and admired by millions. His face was known everywhere. His work was loved by audiences across the globe. Yet in that quiet moment, none of it felt complete. Because behind all the recognition and success, there was a part of him that remained unseen. A part that longed for something real. Not applause, not attention, just connection. He had learned to live with the noise of fame, but the silence of loneliness was something different. It stayed with him, even in the brightest rooms. That night, his thoughts weren't about work, interviews, or upcoming projects. They were about her. A woman who had entered his life without any grand introduction. No expectations. No excitement about who he was in the public eye. She didn't look at him the way others did. She looked at him like he was just another person. And somehow that meant everything. She spoke to him with honesty, listened without judgment, and never tried to impress him. Around her, he didn't feel the need to be anyone else. There were no roles to play, no pressure to perform. Just calm and understanding. He remembered the way she smiled. Simple, genuine, without effort. The way conversations with her felt easy, natural, almost like time slowed down when she was around. For the first time in a long while, he felt something shift inside him. Something real. And as he stood there, watching the lights of the city flicker in the distance, one thought became clear. Maybe everything in his life had led to this moment. Because sometimes the most unexpected people bring the most meaningful changes. And maybe, just maybe, she was the one who would change everything. It all started months ago, in the most ordinary way. No grand moment, no dramatic beginning. Just a quiet decision on a regular day. He had stepped away from the usual rush of the city and found himself in a small, peaceful bookstore tucked between busy streets. It was the kind of place most people would walk past without noticing. But for him, it offered something rare: silence. No cameras, no attention. Just rows of books and the soft sound of pages turning. He wasn't looking for anything special, just a little escape. But then he saw her. She stood near the poetry section, gently flipping through a book as sunlight streamed in from a nearby window. The light rested softly on her face, giving the moment a calm, almost timeless feeling. There was nothing loud or attention-seeking about her. She wasn't trying to stand out. And yet she did. There was a quiet presence about her. Something genuine, something real. The kind of presence you don't notice immediately, but once you do, it stays with you. He walked past her once, pretending to scan the shelves. Then again, a little slower this time. He wasn't sure why, but something about that moment felt different. Not forced, not planned, just a natural. After a brief pause, he finally gathered the courage to speak. "Good choice," he said, nodding toward the book in her hands. She looked up, slightly surprised, but her expression softened into a small smile. "You've read it." "A long time ago," he replied, his tone calm and sincere. That was it. No dramatic introduction. No complicated words. Just a simple exchange. But somehow it didn't end there. What started as a short conversation slowly grew into something more. They spoke about books, stories, and ideas. then about life experiences and the little things people often overlook. Minutes passed, then turned into hours. And strangely, nothing felt rushed. No one interrupted them. No one recognized him. The outside world seemed to fade away, leaving just that quiet corner of the bookstore and two people lost in conversation. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't being watched. He wasn't being judged. He wasn't expected to be anything other than himself. He felt invisible. And for the first time, that invisibility didn't feel like loneliness. Felt like freedom. Because sometimes the most unexpected encounters turn into the most unforgettable beginnings. Days quietly turned into weeks, and without any big announcement, they became a part of each other's routine. They began meeting often, sometimes in that same peaceful bookstore where everything started, and sometimes in a small cafe nearby that overlooked a quiet street. There were no luxury settings, no cameras waiting outside, no curious eyes following them. Just two people, sharing time. Their conversations were never forced. They flowed naturally, like they had known each other for years. Some days they talked about books and ideas. Other days they spoke about life, choices, and the small moments that often go unnoticed. What made it different was her. She never asked about his fame. Never mentioned his success. Never treated him like someone extraordinary. And that was exactly what made her extraordinary. Instead of asking about his career, she asked about his thoughts. What made him happy? What kept him awake at night? What he believed in? What he feared? No one had asked him those questions in a long time. And slowly, without even realizing it, something inside him began to change. He started opening up bit by bit. First it was small things. Simple opinions. Light conversations. But over time it became deeper. More honest. More real. He found himself laughing more than he used to. Not the polite kind of laughter he gave in public, but the genuine kind that comes from feeling comfortable. He felt lighter. Like a weight he had carried for years was slowly fading away. Even his mornings felt different now. He would wake up with something to look forward. A message. Conversation. Moment. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. One evening, as they sat together on a quiet bench watching the sunset, the sky painted in soft shades of orange and gold, there was a calm silence between them. Not awkward. Not empty. Just peaceful. Then she spoke. "You don't have to carry everything alone." Her voice was gentle, but her words carried a depth he wasn't prepared for. He didn't respond immediately, because in that moment something shifted inside him. Those words reached a place no one had touched in years. It wasn't advice. It wasn't sympathy. It was understanding. And that's when he realized something important. She wasn't just someone he enjoyed spending time with. She was someone who truly saw him. Not the image. Not the reputation. But the person behind it all. And without even noticing when it happened, he had fallen. Not suddenly, but slowly, quietly, and deeply. Because sometimes the strongest feelings don't arrive all at once. They grow. When you're not even looking. For the first time in his life, something inside him felt different. It wasn't about work. It wasn't about success. It wasn't about the world watching him. It was about her. And that was enough to change everything. He found himself wanting to do something he had never truly done before. Not for the public, not for recognition, but for someone who had quietly become the most important part of his life. He wanted to give her a moment she would never forget. A memory, built with meaning, not money. So he decided to plan a surprise. But not something loud or extravagant. Something simple. Something real. A place that carried their beginning. The same small bookstore where they first met. Felt right. That place had no glamour, no spotlight, no distractions. Just books, silence, and the feeling of something pure. He arranged everything carefully for a late evening visit. The bookstore would be calm, softly lit, and closed to the outside world. Only a few warm lights would remain on, creating a peaceful glow throughout the space. He worked with the owner to set it up just the way he imagined. Her favorite books were placed gently on wooden tables. A small, simple table was arranged at the center of the store. Nothing fancy. Nothing overwhelming. Just a quiet space where emotions could breathe. There was no luxury involved. No grand decorations. No attention to impress anyone. Only thoughtfulness. Only emotion. And for him that was more powerful than anything else. That evening, he sent her a message asking her to meet him there. He didn't explain much. Just a simple request to come to the bookstore at a specific time. When she arrived, the world outside felt distant. She slowly pushed the door open and stepped inside. And then she stopped. Everything was quiet. The bookstore looked different, almost magical. Soft, warm lights reflected off the wooden shelves. The space felt alive yet peaceful, like a memory had been carefully brought back to life. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, taking in every detail. And then she saw him, standing near the center, waiting. She whispered softly, almost in disbelief, "Keanu, what is this?" There was a gentle silence before he answered. He didn't stand there as the world knew him, not as a star, not as a name on posters. He stood there as a man who had feelings he could no longer hide. He smiled, slightly nervous but honest. And in that moment, he wasn't anything else. Just a man in love. Trying to say something his heart had been holding for a long time. He took a slow step forward. The soft glow of the bookstore lights reflected in his eyes as he walked toward her. Everything around them felt still, as if the world had paused just to witness this moment. There were no cameras, no audience, no distractions, just silence, and truth waiting to be spoken. He stopped a few steps away from her and took a deep breath. Then he said it, gently but clearly. "No scripts tonight, just the truth." His voice carried a calm honesty that filled the quiet room. She looked at him with soft confusion at first, her eyes searching his face, trying to understand what was about to happen. But beneath that curiosity, there was something deeper, trust. He continued, his voice steady but emotional. "I've lived a life where people saw me, but didn't really see me." Pause followed those words. The silence wasn't empty, it was heavy with meaning. "Until you," he said softly. Her expression changed. The world around them seemed to fade even more. He looked at her directly, no barriers, no hesitation. "You didn't care who I was. You cared about how I felt. You didn't look at my name. You looked at me. And somewhere along the way," he paused again, his voice slightly breaking with emotion, "you stole my heart without even trying." Her eyes shimmered with tears she didn't try to hide. 'Cause she understood. Every word came from a place deeper than speech. Came from truth. He stepped a little closer, the warmth of the moment surrounding them like a quiet embrace. "This surprise," he said, taking a slow breath, "is for the one who changed everything." The words settled into the room like a soft echo. For a brief moment, neither of them moved. No one spoke. No one needed to. It felt like time itself had paused just to let the moment breathe. And then something simple, something real happened. She stepped forward. No hesitation. No fear. No questions left unanswered. She wrapped her arms around him and hugged him tightly. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was peaceful. A quiet moment where everything made sense without needing explanation. Two hearts, once strangers, now finding comfort in each other's presence. No words were spoken, because none were needed. In that silence they understood everything. And sometimes that is where the most powerful love stories truly begin. Not in what is said, but in what is finally felt.